The mall was
Let me go. I
loud
didn't
and
do
full of
anything.
life.
Stop resisting.
People were
Keep
walking
moving.
fast.
Get
Some were
off
laughing.
me.
Some were shopping with their families. Music played softly in the background. In the middle of the crowd, a black teenage boy walked calmly. He was about 17, clean clothes, short hair, a small shopping bag in his right hand. He was not running. He was not hiding. He looked relaxed. He stopped near a shoe store and checked his phone. That was when everything changed. A mall security guard suddenly stepped in front of him. "Hey, stop right there," the guard said loudly. People nearby turned their heads. The boy looked up confused. "Yes, sir," he asked calmly. The guard pointed at the bag. "Where did you get that?" "I bought it," the boy replied. "I have the receipt." The guard did not ask for the receipt. He did not listen. Instead, he crossed his arms and said, "We got a report. You were stealing." The boy's face stayed calm, but his eyes showed surprise. "Sir, I didn't steal anything," he said softly. "I paid. I can show you." The guard shook his head. "I've heard that before," he said. More people stopped to watch. Whispers filled the air. "That boy looks guilty. Why would security stop him? Probably stole something." The boy heard the words, but he stayed quiet. Another guard joined them. Then another. The boy now stood surrounded. "Put the bag down," one guard ordered. The boy slowly placed the bag on the floor. He raised his hands a little, not too high. "I'm not resisting," he said calmly. The guards searched the bag. They found the shoes. They found nothing else. "No tag," one guard asked. "Receipt," the boy replied again. "In my pocket." Before he could reach for it, a guard grabbed his arm. "Don't move," the guard shouted. The boy froze. "I was just—" "Turn around," the guard said. Cold metal clicked around his wrists. "Handcuffs." The mall went silent. Phones came out. People started recording. The boy was now handcuffed in the middle of the mall. His face stayed calm, but his heart was racing. He had done nothing wrong. A police officer arrived minutes later. He looked at the boy once. Then he looked at the guards. "What's the issue?" the officer asked. "Caught him stealing," a guard said quickly. The officer turned to the boy. "Is that true?" "No, sir," the boy said respectfully. "I paid for everything." The officer sighed. "Everyone says that," he replied. The boy swallowed hard. He felt eyes on him from every direction. Some faces showed anger. Some showed joy. Some showed nothing at all. The officer grabbed the boy's arm. "You're coming with us," he said. The boy did not fight. He did not shout. As they walked, someone in the crowd laughed. Another person said, "Should have stayed home." The boy kept his head up. Inside, he remembered his mother's voice. "Stay calm. Never give them a reason." They took him to the mall security room. The door closed behind them. The room was small and cold. The officer removed his gloves. "So," the officer said, "where did you really get the shoes?" "I bought them," the boy repeated. The officer slammed his hand on the table. "Enough." The boy flinched, but stayed quiet. The officer leaned closer. "You think you're smart?" "No, sir," the boy said. "I'm just telling the truth." The officer laughed. "You kids always say that." The boy looked down at his handcuffs. Then he looked up. "Sir," he said slowly, "may I make one phone call?" The officer paused. He looked at the boy's calm face. "Who are you calling?" he asked. "My father," the boy replied. The officer smiled. "Yeah. Tell him to bring bail money." The boy did not respond. He only said, "Please." The officer rolled his eyes. "Fine. One call." The boy picked up the phone. His hands were shaking now, but his voice was steady. The line rang once. Twice. Someone answered. "Dad," the boy said quietly. "I need you at the mall." There was a pause. Then he added one more line. "They arrested me." The officer laughed loudly. The guards laughed too. They did not know what that phone call meant. They did not know who was on the other end. And they did not know that at that exact moment, everything was about to change. The security room felt smaller than before. The door was closed, but the noise of the mall still leaked inside. Muffled voices. Footsteps. Laughter. The black teenage boy sat in a hard chair, his hands still in cuffs. Cold metal pressed into his skin. He did not cry. He did not beg. He looked straight ahead. The police officer stood near the wall, arms crossed. One security guard paced back and forth. "You know," the guard said, "if you just tell the truth, this can end faster." The boy slowly turned his head. "I'm telling the truth," he said calmly. "I paid for the shoes." The guard laughed. "Yeah, sure." He leaned closer. "You kids think we are stupid." The boy said nothing. Silence filled the room. The officer checked his watch. "We'll run the report," he said. "But don't get your hopes up." The boy nodded once. He had learned something important in his life. Arguing with power only made things worse. Minutes passed. The security guard stepped outside and opened the door. The hallway was full of people. Some tried to look inside. Some lifted their phones. A woman whispered, "That's him. That's the boy." Another voice said, "They always steal." The boy heard every word. Each one hit like a small stone. The officer noticed his face. "Don't worry about them," he said, "but worry about yourself." The boy took a deep breath. Inside his mind, memories played. His mother brushing his hair before school. His father's voice, calm and strong. "Respect yourself, even when others don't." The door closed again. The security guard returned, holding the shopping bag. "No receipt inside," he said. The boy lifted his cuffed hands slightly. "I told you," he replied. "It's in my pocket." The officer walked closer. "Which pocket?" he asked. "My left jacket pocket." The officer searched and pulled out a folded paper. He opened it. The boy watched carefully. The officer frowned. The receipt was clear. Store name, time, price. Everything matched. The officer looked at the guard. The guard shrugged. "That doesn't prove anything," he said. "He could have picked it up." The boy's jaw tightened. "That's not fair," he said quietly. The guard snapped back. "Life isn't fair." The officer sighed. "Enough," he said. He folded the receipt and placed it on the table. "We'll still verify with the store." The boy nodded. Again, silence. The clock ticked loudly on the wall. Tick, tick, tick. Every second felt heavy. Outside, the mall kept moving. Inside, time stood still. The boy finally spoke again. "Sir," he said softly, "may I sit more comfortably?" The officer looked at him. "You're in cuffs," he replied. "You'll manage." The boy swallowed his pride. He adjusted in the chair. His wrists hurt. His heart hurt more. He thought about school, about basketball practice, about the normal day that was now gone. The door opened suddenly. Another officer stepped inside. "Captain is on duty today," he said to the first officer. The boy's head lifted slightly. The guard rolled his eyes. "Doesn't matter," he said. "This kid is still in trouble." The second officer looked at the boy. He noticed something. The calm posture, the respectful tone, the way he spoke. He hesitated. "You said you called your father?" the officer asked. "Yes, sir," the boy replied. "Did he say he was coming?" The boy nodded. "Yes." The guard laughed again. Probably scared him straight. The boy did not smile. He knew his father. He knew what silence meant. Outside the room, footsteps grew louder. Heavy footsteps. Confident footsteps. Voices lowered. The mall noise faded. The officer at the door looked out. His face changed. He stood straight. The guard noticed. "What is it?" the guard asked. The officer did not answer. He just said one thing. "Someone important just arrived." The boy sat still. His heart beat faster. Not from fear. From certainty. Because he knew this story was no longer in their control. The security room felt heavy. Not because of noise, but because of silence. The black teenage boy sat still in the chair. His hands were still locked in cold metal cuffs. No one spoke for a moment. The police officer stood near the door listening. Footsteps echoed outside. Slow, strong, measured. The security guard felt uneasy. He cleared his throat. "So," he said, trying to sound confident, "your father coming to save you?" The boy lifted his eyes. "Yes," he answered quietly. The guard smirked. "Good luck with that." The boy did not reply. He had learned long ago that silence could be stronger than words. The door opened slightly. An officer looked inside. "He's here," the officer said. The room froze. "Who?" the guard asked quickly. The officer hesitated. "Your visitor." The guard laughed nervously. "Bring him in," he said. But the officer didn't move. Instead, he stepped aside. Heavy footsteps grew closer. The air changed. The boy felt it. This was not fear. This was presence. The door opened fully. A tall man stood in the doorway. His uniform was clean. His badge shined. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. The room went silent. No one spoke. The man stepped inside. He did not rush. He did not raise his voice. He simply looked around. First to the guards, then at the officers, then at the boy. The boy met his eyes. For a brief second, The man's face changed. Just slightly. Concern. Then control. The man turned back to the room. "Who is in charge here?" he asked. His voice was calm but firm. The officer swallowed. "I am, sir," he replied. The man nodded. "Good," he said. He pointed gently toward the boy. "Why is that young man in handcuffs?" The guard spoke quickly. "Suspected theft, sir." The man tilted his head. "Suspected?" he repeated. "Yes," the guard said. He matched the description. The man paused. "Description of what?" The guard hesitated. "Well, you know." The man's eyes sharpened. "No," he said. "I don't." The guard cleared his throat. He was acting suspicious. The man took one slow step forward. "Suspicious how?" The guard said nothing. The officer spoke instead. "We're still verifying, sir." The man nodded again. He looked at the receipt on the table. He picked it up. He read it. Slowly. Carefully. He placed it back down. "This receipt looks valid," he said. The guard shook his head. "That doesn't mean." The man raised one hand. The guard stopped speaking. The man turned back to the boy. "Son," he said calmly. "Are you okay?" The boy nodded. "Yes, sir." The guard frowned. "Sir," he repeated. The man placed a hand on the table. "Remove the cuffs," he said. The guard's eyes widened. "But, sir," I said, "remove them." The officer quickly stepped forward. He unlocked the cuffs. The metal fell to the floor with a loud sound. The boy rubbed his wrists. Red marks showed on his skin. The man looked at them. His jaw tightened. He turned back to the room. "You detained this boy without proof," he said. "You judged him before checking facts." The guard tried to speak again. "We were just doing our job." The man nodded slowly. "No," he said. "You were doing what was easy." The room stayed silent. Then the man said something that changed everything. "My name is Captain Harris," he said. Every officer straightened. The guard's face went pale. The man continued. "And this boy," he placed a hand on the teenager's shoulder, "is my son." The room felt smaller. Heavier. The guard's mouth opened. No sound came out. The officer looked down. Captain Harris turned to his son. "Did you steal anything?" he asked calmly. "No, sir," the boy replied. The captain nodded. "I know." He turned back to the guards. "This conversation is not over," he said. "It's just beginning." Outside the room, the mall waited, unaware that a quiet storm had just arrived. The security room door opened again. This time, it did not open quietly. Two officers stood outside, standing straight. Behind them, people gathered in the hallway. Phones were raised. Whispers spread fast. Something big was happening. Captain Harris stepped forward. He did not shout. He did not rush. He walked like a man who did not need permission. The security guard felt sweat on his neck. The officer who laughed earlier now stood silent. Captain Harris looked at his son. "Stay here," he said calmly. Then he turned to the officers. "Bring the store manager," he ordered. "Yes, sir," one officer replied quickly. The boy sat back down. Free hands now. Red marks still visible. People outside noticed. Someone whispered. They removed the cuffs. Another voice said, "That man looks important." The store manager arrived minutes later. He was nervous. "What's going on?" he asked. Captain Harris held up the receipt. "Did this boy pay for these shoes?" he asked. The manager looked once. Then again. "Yes," he said clearly. "He paid in full." The room went silent. No excuse left. Captain Harris turned slowly toward the guard. "You hear that?" he asked. The guard swallowed. "Yes, sir." Captain Harris stepped closer. "You stopped him without proof. You accused him without checking. You handcuffed him in public." Each sentence was calm. Each word was heavy. The guard tried to defend himself. "We were following procedure." Captain Harris shook his head. "No," he said. "You followed your bias." That word hit harder than a shout. People in the hallway leaned closer. Phones kept recording. Captain Harris raised his voice slightly. Not angry, just clear. "Bring everyone to the main floor," he said. "Right now." The guard looked shocked. "Sir, in public?" "Yes," Captain Harris replied. "In public." Minutes later, the group walked out. The boy walked beside his father. Head high. Steps steady. The crowd in the mall stopped. Music faded. Talking stopped. Everyone watched. Captain Harris stood in the center of the mall. His voice carried. "This young man was accused of theft," he said, "without evidence." People murmured. "He is my son," Captain Harris continued. "But today that does not matter. He paused. "What matters is this," he said. "You saw a black boy. You assumed guilt. You acted fast, but not fair." Silence filled the space. The guard stood behind him, eyes down. Captain Harris pointed to the boy's wrists. "Those marks are not from crime," he said. "They are from judgment." The boy looked at the crowd. Some people looked away. Some looked ashamed. Captain Harris turned to the guard. "You are suspended," he said clearly. "Effective now." Gasps spread. Phones shook. The guard's face went white. Captain Harris continued. "This mall will issue a public apology, and training will be reviewed." Then he turned to his son. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. "Yes, Dad," the boy replied. The crowd froze at the word Dad. The power shift was complete. Captain Harris placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "My son did everything right today," he said. He stayed calm. He showed respect. He looked at the crowd. "Remember this moment," he said, "because next time, it may not be my son." No one clapped. No one spoke. The lesson was louder than noise. Captain Harris nodded once. "Let's go," he said. Father and son walked out together. The mall slowly came back to life. But something had changed. People would remember this day, not because of anger, but because truth walked in and silence listened. The mall slowly returned to normal. Music started again. People began walking. Stores opened their doors. But the feeling in the air was not the same. The black teenage boy walked beside his father. No cameras followed them now. No whispers. Just quiet steps. They reached a bench near the exit. Captain Harris stopped. He looked at his son's wrists. Red marks were still there. He reached out and gently touched them. "I'm sorry," he said softly. The boy shook his head. "It's okay," he replied. "I'm used to it." Those words hurt more than the cuffs. Captain Harris sat down. "So am I," he said. They sat in silence. Not awkward silence. Understanding silence. Across the mall, the security guard stood alone. His badge was gone. His shoulders were heavy. People who once listened to him now walked past him. No eye contact. No respect. He felt small. A supervisor walked up to him. "You're done for today," he said. "Turn in your uniform." The guard wanted to speak, to explain, but there were no words left. Meanwhile, the store manager stood near the entrance. He watched father and son. He stepped forward slowly. "I want to apologize," he said. "To both of you." Captain Harris nodded. The boy looked at the man. "Thank you," he said. Simple words, but they mattered. The manager swallowed. "We failed you today," he admitted. Captain Harris replied calmly. "Learn from it," he said. "That's all I ask." The manager nodded and walked away. Outside, sunlight hit the glass doors. The boy stopped. "Dad," he said, "why didn't you yell?" Captain Harris smiled softly. "Because yelling closes ears," he replied. "Calm opens them." The boy nodded. They stepped outside. Fresh air. Freedom. Across the street, a woman approached. She looked nervous. "I saw everything," she said. "I'm sorry for what they did to you." The boy smiled. "Thank you," he said. She wiped her eyes and walked away. Captain Harris placed a hand on his son's back. "You handled that with strength," he said. The boy shrugged. "You taught me." Back inside the mall, officers gathered. A meeting was called. Training videos were paused. Questions were asked. Uncomfortable ones. Why did we act so fast? Why didn't we check first? What made us assume? No easy answers came. That was the point. The security guard sat in his car later that day. Uniform folded on the seat. He stared at his hands. They were shaking. He remembered the boy's calm face. The receipt. The silence. For the first time, he felt shame. Real shame. At home, the boy sat on his bed. He looked at the shoes he had bought. They were still in the bag. He did not feel happy about them anymore. His phone buzzed. Messages from friends. "What happened? Are you okay?" He typed back, "I'm fine." Because he was. Not because nothing happened, but because he survived it with dignity. Later that night, Captain Harris stood alone in his office. He looked at a photo on his desk. A younger version of his son, smiling. He took a deep breath. He knew the badge gave him power, but also gave him duty. Tomorrow, reports would be written. Changes would be made. But tonight, he just felt like a father. The boy turned off his light. Before sleeping, he remembered one thing. They tried to break him. They failed. Because respect, calm, and truth were stronger than fear. The story did not end at the mall. It traveled. Phones shared the video. Messages crossed cities. Faces watched in silence. People saw a black teenage boy in handcuffs. Then they saw a calm father walk in. Then they saw truth stand tall. By morning, everyone was talking. Not with anger. With questions. At the police station, Captain Harris stood in front of a room full of officers. No cameras this time. Just mirrors. He spoke slowly. What happened yesterday was not a mistake, he said. It was a habit. No one interrupted. When we act without facts, he continued, we turn authority into harm. Some officers looked down. Some nodded. Captain Harris did not blame. He explained. This could have been any child, he said. And next time it might be. The room stayed silent. Training was changed that day. New rules were written. Receipts before cuffs. Proof before pressure. Respect before reaction. Across town, the security company released a statement. An apology. Not long. Not loud. But clear. The guard was officially suspended. An investigation followed. Consequences came quietly. The boy returned to school. Hallways felt different. Some students looked at him with pride. Some with surprise. A teacher pulled him aside. I saw the video, she said. I'm proud of you. He nodded. Thank you. During lunch, a younger student sat next to him. Were you scared? The kid asked. The boy thought for a moment. Yes, he said honestly. But I stayed calm. The kid smiled. I want to be like that. That was when the boy understood something. Strength spreads. At home, his mother hugged him tightly. No words. Just arms. That night, the family ate dinner together. Simple food. Warm light. Captain Harris looked at his son. You showed people a better way, he said. The boy shook his head. I just stayed quiet. Captain Harris smiled. That's harder than shouting. Across the city, conversation started. Parents talked to children. Friends talked to friends. Not about crime. About fairness. About listening. About pausing before judging. The mall installed new signs. Respect all guests. Small words. Big meaning. The boy returned there 1 week later. Not to shop. Just to walk. No one stopped him. No one stared. That felt strange. And right. Near the shoe store, he paused. He took a breath. Then he smiled and kept walking. Elsewhere, the former guard attended training. No uniform. Just a notebook. He listened. This time, he did not defend himself. He learned. Change was slow, but it had started. Late one evening, the boy sat at his desk. He wrote in a notebook. Not for school. For himself. He wrote one line. Calm is power. He closed the book. Outside, the world kept moving. Problems still existed. Bias did not disappear. But something shifted. One moment. One choice. One calm voice. Sometimes, justice is loud. Sometimes it is quiet. This time, it was quiet. And it traveled far. Life slowly moved forward. Days passed. The video stopped trending. The mall returned to routine. But some moments do not fade. They settle deep. The black teenage boy woke up one morning and felt different. Not broken. Not angry. Stronger. He walked to school under the early sun. Backpack on his shoulder. Head held high. At school, a classmate raised a hand. You're that guy, he said. The boy paused. Yes, he replied. The classmate nodded. That was brave. The boy smiled politely. He did not feel brave. He felt calm. That was enough. Later that week, the school counselor asked him to speak. Not as a victim, as a voice. He stood in front of a small group of students. No script. No speech. Just truth. I stayed calm, he said, because anger would not help me. The room stayed quiet. A girl raised her hand. What if they don't listen? The boy thought. Then you still respect yourself, he answered. That answer stayed with them. At home, Captain Harris watched his son grow quieter, but not smaller, wiser. One evening, they sat on the porch. The sky turned orange. I worry about you, Captain Harris said. The boy nodded. I know, he replied. I worry too. They shared a small laugh. Captain Harris looked ahead. I can't protect you everywhere, he said. The boy met his eyes. I know, he replied. But you taught me how to protect myself. That moment meant more than any badge. Across town, the mall security team trained new staff. Videos played. Scenarios repeated. One image stayed on the screen longer than the rest. A calm black teenager. Hands cuffed. eyes steady. Instructors paused the video. This is where it went wrong, they said. Change came slowly, but it came. The boy returned to the mall one last time. Not alone, with friends. They joked. They laughed. They walked freely. Near the exit, a young child stared at him. The boy smiled and waved. The child smiled back. That felt like healing. On a quiet night, the boy sat in his room. He opened his notebook again. He added a second line. Calm is power. Truth is protection. He closed it. Across the city, comments still lived online. Some hateful, some kind. The boy did not read them anymore. He did not need approval. He had something stronger. Self-respect. Captain Harris stood at a community meeting weeks later. He told the story, not as a hero, as a lesson. My son did not fight back, he said. He stood firm. People listened. Some wiped their eyes. Some nodded. At the end, Captain Harris said one final thing. Don't wait until it's your child. The room stood silent. That night, the boy looked in a mirror. He saw more than a face. He saw resilience. He saw dignity. He saw a future. The world had tried to label him. He refused it, because he knew who he was. And that is where real power lies. Bell, final closing. They tried to break him with cuffs. But he walked away with something stronger, respect.